All right, well, it's 7 o'clock. We have a very full agenda and I'm really excited for the great turnout tonight. And what I'd like to do to get started tonight is we have our director, Drew Kessler, on the line, and to ask Drew if he'd like to say a few words.
Good evening, all. Herb, thank you so much. I will be very brief in that I am extremely happy and excited for all the work that Herb, Doug, and team have done to put this survey together and really flush out all that's going to be shown in the coming give or take hours. So to say that membership is our top priority, I think is a complete understatement. And I know I'm literally preaching to the choir here. So really, thank you for all that you're collectively doing. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for implementing this. We go into pet season very quickly, and I know this will be a very hot topic. So I will wrap it up by simply saying again, Herb, thank you for all that you've done in this effort, and I really look forward to this rolling out. So thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks, Drew. Okay, all right, so let me get started here. I want to start off here by sharing my screen. So hold on 1 second. Okay, so want to go over several items before we get to the results of these two surveys. There are 3 items I want to cover quickly. First, the first item I want to talk about are our membership statistics, where we are 6 months into the year as a zone. I want to talk to you or introduce a new clubs initiative that we're planning to have going full force in 2023-24. I want to spend a minute or two talking about the Rotary Roadmap Initiative and where we are with that. And then we're going to get into these 2 surveys. The first one is about characteristics of clubs with a growth culture. And the second is the Assistant Governor survey results and a proposed path forward. Karen Gaffney will be presenting the presentation on the Assistant Governor survey. So here is where we stand as a zone. Now, many of you have seen these graphs before, but I know I've got a number of club presidents and members of district membership committees on the call today, so I want to explain this really briefly. This is our zone 32, and this is just the net change in membership. So what we see, if we look at the yellow line, that's our 4-year average history of what's been going on with our zone. And what you see is 5 months of growth, 1 month of decline, 5 more months of growth, and then one month of big decline in June. And of course, this happens because the dues are due on January 1st and July 1st. So the yellow is our 4-year average. The green line is what we call our success track. And this is the track we'd like to be on so that we would end up the year with a 0.5% increase. And the blue line is where we are today as a zone. Now, I will say we're slightly above our 4-year average, but what that means is if we continue on this track, we'll be about minus 1,000 members at the end of the year. Obviously, we were on a better track last year. So that's where we are as a zone. Now let's talk about where we are as districts. Now, because I mean, of course, what matters the most is where we are as clubs, but where we are as districts, currently we have 2 districts above our success track, District 7230, which is the Metro New York Westchester district, and the 7430, which is the Eastern Pennsylvania district. We have 7 districts. We have 7 districts that are above their 4-year average, and the rest of our districts are either at their 4-year average or below. Now, I put up one of the districts which has bucked the trend, and this is District 7230. You'll notice that in December, when almost all districts lose membership, This district gained membership this year. How did they do it? Well, they did it because they started a new Rotary club, and there was one club, another club in their district that had an increase of 15 net members. So I'm guessing that's probably some kind of new experience or alternate experience that's helping with that growth. I could be wrong, but that's just my guess. And you can see they bucked the trend. They actually increased. So that's the message about starting new clubs and how that really does help change the curve. Now, on the other side of the coin, well, for our entire zone, for the first 6 months, we have only started one new Rotary club, and that's in District 7230. Now, this is well below our average in terms of what we normally see for new clubs, which brings me to the point that we really do have an opportunity here to think differently about how we focus on new clubs, which kind of brings me to my next slide, which is this new clubs initiative that we really want to focus on starting next Rotary year. Now, up to now, we've had an innovative club advocate effort focused at the zone level. Now, if you'll recall, for those of you who were on our last call, in November, Patrick Eakes, who was the Rotary coordinator for Zone 33, talked to us about impact clubs. But one of the main reasons we invited him to speak with us is because Zone 33 has been doing much better with respect to starting new clubs, new satellites, and new Rotaract clubs across their zone. And they have a different model. They focus their innovative club advocates at the district level, not the zone level. And they had innovative club advocates for every single district. Now, if we go and we look in Rotary.org, they don't call them innovative club advocates. They call them new club development subcommittee chair. So the ask for you as district leaders is to, and again, this is an opt-in effort like every other effort we work on at the zone level. It's up to you if you want to opt in. We sure hope you do. And what we'd like you to do is to identify a new club development subcommittee chair by April, if possible. We really want to hit the ground running with this, and we really want to start, if we can, later in this year, because we know it takes time to get things rolling with new clubs. Now, I know there are a number of districts right now that are focused on bringing new clubs in, and by all means, we want to keep going and making that happen. But we're hoping that we can make it even a little bit more pervasive in the future. Now, this new club development chair should be someone other than your district membership chair. Your district membership chair has enough responsibilities. We need somebody who can focus on new club development. Now, what we will provide, we're going to provide you a position description within the next month to help you identify someone with the right skills for this position. So we will commit to providing that to you. We're also going to commit to providing a learning program on starting new clubs as needed, because some people have that experience, some people don't. So the ones that don't, we're going to be able to provide that learning program. And then we're going to, starting next year, we're going to provide a forum across districts to share successes and challenges for starting new clubs. So we're going to have a way so that we're all in this together, and hopefully next January, when I'm presenting, we've got many new clubs that have started in our zone. So personally, I've been involved with starting a number of new clubs. And what I will tell you is it's one of the most rewarding things you can do in Rotary. It really is. Not only the starting of the new clubs, but going back to those clubs year after year and watching how they're growing and developing. So That's it on the New Clubs Initiative. Again, what I wanted to do was to introduce the idea tonight. You'll be hearing more from us in the coming month or two. The next one I want to share is the Rotaract Roadmap Initiative. And again, this is another district opt-in initiative if you're interested. The goal here is to strengthen Rotaract in your district. What it is it's a conversation between Rotaractors and district leaders. We all know that there's growing Rotaract across our zone is absolutely an opportunity for growth. And when we compare it to other parts of the world, it absolutely is an opportunity. So really what this is it's an internal assessment. It's your internal assessment of Rotaract in your district. And what we'll do is we'll provide, again, a forum for sharing of outcomes across districts. In fact, we're going to be having one of those forums at 8 o'clock tonight with the districts that are in our pilot. And our pilot is underway with several districts. We're going to finish it in January. We're going to refine the model, and then we're going to be sharing that with all the district leadership in February and March. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and ask if there are any really quick questions. My purpose here was just to inform you about those two initiatives. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Randall, yes.
Yeah, hi, Herb. One of the issues that came up for us was CDS was not able to process any chartering for the first half of the year. We only got our clubs chartered and they backdated them to September and to December 31st, and they did it in this year, but nothing got chartered for us in the first half of the year.
Drew, are you listening to this? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Yes, we're aware of that, Randall, and it's a frustration for us, and we need to do something about it. So we will take that action and bring that up with CDS. We never used to have that problem, but over the last 6 to 9 months, we have had that problem. John, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. What is your take on resuscitating moribund clubs? I mean, we have one locally that just has petered out. And
Well,
yeah.
All right, well, just a quick comment on that. District 7230 recently saved a charter from one of those clubs with one member. And Mabood is on. You want to explain, Mabood? You're on mute.
Great.
Sure. There was one club which had one member. All of the other members had resigned. So we were able to get a former Rotaractor to take reins of this new club, and she was able to get 9 more. So we now have 10 members in that club. And that club has got off to a running start. So that's the story of the saved charter. And I think I'll echo the comment made just earlier that there seems to be a major software problem within Rotary.org with the new club that we chartered. The original application date was in early September. We got approval from CDS in late October, but the club was not entered into the Rotary database until December 3rd. And up until today, there is still a problem whereby you can see the club in the main list of Rotary, but when you go through the home and you look at the number of clubs and the total number of members, that club does not exist. So I've taken this up with the data people, and they have escalated it, but there does not seem to be a resolution to this effect. For that reason, none of the members of the New Promise Club are able to log into my Rotary.
Okay.
So this is a issue, and I think Drew, if you want to take this up at a higher level, this might have some beneficial impact.
Right. Yeah, we really do need to get this resolved. All right. Well, thank you, Mabood. Did you have a question, or did you just want to make a comment?
No, that's all.
Okay, thanks. All right, one more, and then I think we got to move on because we've got a full agenda. Ray? Ray, I'll take your question.
I have the same issue. We lost the club in November for non-payment of dues, and we had communication with the club and with RI, and we were able to reinstitute the club on December 23rd, but it still has not appeared on the RI website that club exists, even though they paid their dues and they said, yes, they'd be reinstated and all. So we have the same issue that there's a delay in some action on RI. It's a small club, but every little bit helps.
So Randall, Ray, and
7490.
Mabood. Yes, I know who you are. Thank you. All right.
That's not good.
No, I'm trying to make sure I know as many of you as I possibly can.
Thank you.
Positive statement, Ray.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I want to move on. I want to talk to you about the study that we did on clubs with a growth culture. So just bear with me for a second here so I can share my screen again. Right. Oh, why did it do that? Okay, so this is a study and that we've just completed across the United States and Canada on clubs with a growth culture. Now, just by way of review, real quick, a year ago, we did a study across our two zones on clubs that grew significantly during the pandemic. And we got results back from 55 clubs that had grown by 5+ members during the 2021 pandemic growth year. Now, the result of that study, we identified 5 attributes of these clubs. One was strong leadership. One was many events and projects. The third was visible in their community. They had active, intentional member engagement, and they had clear goals and a growth plan. Now, fast forward to this year, and we did another survey. This time we got all the Rotary coordinators across the United States and Canada to work with us on this survey. And here we were looking at clubs with consistent growth or with a growth culture over the past 5 years. Now, we weren't looking at new clubs. So the clubs we looked at in this survey were all 5 years or older, okay? I'm thinking about another survey on new clubs that are growing, but that is not part of this survey. The main purpose for this survey was to help with president-elect training, so we'd have some evidence-based actions that clubs can take based on other clubs that have been successful in growing. Our survey criteria was 10+ net members in 5 years, and they had to grow in at least 3 of the past 5 years. And we sent out a 20-question survey to the immediate past presidents of these clubs, and we got responses back from 85 clubs across the United States and Canada. And that was about a 30% response rate. When I talked to Brian King, he said that's a great response rate. Of course, we were a little disappointed because the year before we had a 60% response rate. But still, what I'm going to show you today are a lot of the really strong trends that came out of that survey. We also did 13 interviews, and we're in the process of putting together videos from those interviews, but we just finished those interviews last week, so we don't have all of that to show you tonight. I do have 2 videos that I am going to share with you, but suffice it to say there's more to come on that. We expect to have those videos all completed by early to mid-February. So now, with the data from the first survey as a key basis for inquiry, we were able to seek more detail, with the result that our understanding of the qualities that make clubs successful was enhanced. clarified, and expanded. First, and most importantly, we see that leadership is more than an attribute for success. It's an essential overarching requirement. Strong leaders create strong leaders create strong clubs. And we identified 5 attributes in addition to this. And you'll see that a lot of these are pretty similar to last year. One of them was effective governance. The second one, active, intentional member engagement. The third, dynamic, meaningful service. Fourth was strong public image. And there was a 5th one this time, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Now, a question we often get when we do this is, well, what were the club sizes? Well, it turned out they were all different club sizes. So in 2017, where we started the number counting, 37% of the clubs were less than 25 members. So they were smaller clubs. In fact, a couple of them were 7 members, and they had grown significantly. One of them, I think, grew from 7 to 38 members. 40% were less than 50, or 26 to 50 members. And then the rest were larger clubs. And of course, now in 2022, they're all larger clubs. Only 5% were less than 25 members. Fully 50% were 26 to 50. And then, of course, now we've got some clubs that are greater than 100 members. So the moral to this is there were all different sizes of clubs, and there wasn't a whole lot of difference in terms of trends between the club sizes. The next thing I want to talk to you a little bit about or introduce is attrition and attraction. Now, if you've heard me speak before, you know I've talked about attrition and attraction and making sure that our attraction is greater than our attrition, et cetera. But the average attrition of these clubs that responded to the survey was 12%. It wasn't 3%. It wasn't 4%. It was a pretty typical attrition rate where we think a healthy Rotary club, at least in the United States, should be. Yes, there are some clubs with lower attrition than that. But for the most part, clubs in the 10 to 12% range, that's a pretty healthy attrition rate. What was different about these clubs was the average attraction rate. These clubs had an average attraction rate of 23%. They were attractive to people with a heart for service in their communities. All right, so now let's go through these 5 different attributes. The first one was effective governance. And these clubs, they had a planning process for growth. And I'm going to back this up with data, okay? They focused on leadership continuity, and they had an intentional membership focus. So the clubs planned and set goals. They planned for growth and they set goals. In fact, 81% of the clubs that responded, you're going to see a lot of the numbers that I'm going to show in this results are 70, 80, 90%. 81% of them told us they had a planning process for growth. And nearly 80% of them updated their plans at least quarterly or annually. And 83% of these clubs said that they established annual membership goals. So this stuff didn't happen by accident. It was planned. Second, leadership continuity. This came through loud and clear as well. Nearly 90% of these clubs had a president-elect at least 1 year in advance. And nearly 50% of these clubs said they had designated a president nominee at least 2 years in advance. So district leaders, don't we wish that this was the case for all of our clubs, right? They're planning for leadership continuity. And as you know, if you're going to try to grow membership, leadership continuity is a really important aspect. And then finally, well, you might not be that surprised at this one. Over 90% of them told us they had a club membership chair. Now, next was an intentional membership focus. These clubs indicated to us over and over again, membership growth was a top priority. And they also talked about how membership was everyone's responsibility. And one of the pieces of data on that, we asked them, well, did you have a super recruiter or two in your club that caused all this growth? Or did most of the members recruit, sponsor members? In other words, it was distributed. And it turned out the answer was very clear. 77% of them said most of the members were sponsors of new members. And the other thing that we saw over and over again was, well, it was a weekly agenda item for clubs that met weekly. For clubs that met bi-weekly, it was a bi-weekly agenda item. It was front and center all the time. Okay, so now I'm going to show you our first video. Now, this is a video from Donna Boyles. She's the past president of the King Rotary Club in North Carolina. It's a rural, it's a club in a rural area north of Winston-Salem. And one of the questions I often get when I'm presenting this is, well, we're a small club. What do we do? How do we grow our membership? Well, this was a small club. This was a club with 15 to 20 members. And over those 5 years, they doubled their membership. And every once in a while, you hear an idea that you say, well, why didn't I think of that? And Donna came up with that idea. And basically, Donna put everyone in her club literally on the membership committee. So, okay, so let's hear from Donna. Hold on.
And I decided as the president, we would have the entire club would be a membership committee, and I would divide it up into subcommittees. Focusing on retention, I had 2 committees. One was called Reach Out and Touch, and they kind of focused on the well-being of members, and they came up with a buddy system, so paired everybody up. And so if your buddy was not there, you contact them and have lunch every once in a while or whatever you wanted to do. And the other committee in retention was Surprise and Delight. And we had lots of games or fun activities. And the very favorite one, I think, of everybody's, we did show and tell. And a member would come and they would bring something, and just like kindergarten, but they would show something that meant a lot to them and tell about it. And we learned so much about the members that we didn't know. And so, so those 2 focused on retention. And then I had Rotary Recruiter and highlighters, so that they would continue to look at ways to highlight our club. And the 5th one was called Explorers, and they were to explore the different types. And they focused in mostly on doing a satellite club because of those young professionals who said they wanted to be part of Rotary. They meet in the late afternoons after work, and I think that's been a success.
So Donna came up with a simple idea. And of course, I was interviewing her. And the next question I asked her is, well, don't you need those other committees, things like service and fundraising? And she said, yes, we did. But what we did was every other month, only the membership committee met. And then on alternate months, these other committees met. So it really helped focus the club on what was most important, which was growing their membership so that they could do more in their community. Very interesting. All right, so the next topic is active intentional engagement. Now, one of the questions we asked on the survey was, give us your top 3 reasons why you think your club grew. Well, the number 1 reason that showed up 65% of the time was great meetings and strong friendships. So more on that, we're going to build some videos to really strengthen that. But more about that, there was a focus on consistent and flexible meetings, engaging new members, and saying thank you. So let's go through those last 3. Consistent and flexible meetings. 3/4 of the clubs said they met weekly in person. The other clubs either met bi-weekly or virtual. But 2/3 of the clubs told us that they use hybrid technology. In other words, after the pandemic, they didn't abandon the hybrid technology. Excuse me. They took advantage of it. And then the third characteristic was, it turned out nearly 30% of these clubs created a satellite club as an alternate Rotary experience. And you heard Donna talk about the King Club and how they created a late afternoon satellite so that young professionals could join their club. But there were lots of different ideas on that. On average, when we look across all of our clubs, it's usually about 5% created a satellite club, but here almost 30% do. Now, in terms of engaging new members and thanking the members, 70% of them responded they had a defined new member orientation process. Over 3/4 of them said they annually take time to let members know the club's accomplishments, and 70% formally recognize members' time and talent. Now let me move on to the next topic, dynamic, meaningful service. Now under that, well, this came through loud and clear. These clubs had signature projects and fundraisers, and I'll explain what that means on the next slide. They included community members in their service projects, and they had ongoing active service. So let's talk about signature service projects. We define that as greater than 50% member involvement in a given project or fundraiser, but the project can go on multiple times during the year. 86% of the clubs said they had a repeating signature project every year. In fact, when we did the interviews, I heard about some of these amazing projects that they did and some of the fundraisers that, that would involve thousands of people in their community, some of them. It was pretty impressive. And hopefully we can get that to come across in some of the videos. 83% of them told us they had a repeating signature fundraiser every single year. But the key, I think, is including community members. Now, this came through really loud and clear. 87% invite community members to their projects and fundraisers. So a lot of times inviting community members to a project, they get to learn a lot more about Rotary than they do actually attending a meeting. In fact, there was a president from Texas that quoted on the survey, he said, "This is the secret sauce." He had another comment in there too. It's about time you ask this question because this is how we grew our club. And then 2/3 of these clubs indicated they held one or more events during the year to attract new members. And then in terms of ongoing active service, only 22% of the clubs that responded said they had service projects 1 to 3 times a year. The other 78% said they had more, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and 40% of them said they had 10 or more. In fact, when we were interviewing, I often heard, well, we have projects once a month. I even had a club president from Georgia tell me they have projects once a week. So absolutely being active, this promotes engagement. And then public image. These clubs had active use of media tools and they focused it on member attraction. So just remember, when we think about being visible in our community. It's not just doing, it's being seen doing. Now, the media tools that they said that they used, this was the highest number we saw. 95% told us they used Facebook, and 21% said they used Instagram. Over 3/4 of them mentioned their club website, and over 50% said they used local print news outlets. Now, one of the things that we saw when we did the interviews was it depended on where the club was located, which was the primary media tool. It seemed that when we talked to clubs in rural areas, local print news outlet was a primary mechanism for getting the word out in terms of what they were doing. When we talked to clubs in suburban and urban areas, it was social media. So that was an interesting finding that we had from the survey. And then these are some statistics I've already shown you. 2/3 hold events to attract new members. Many members sponsor new members, so they're all out there getting the information out there. And 87% invite community members to projects. So this is just to sort of reinforce that public image means a lot more, you know, making the public aware of what you're doing. And then finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, this didn't come up that much in the survey results, but boy, did it come up when we talked to them in the interviews. And when we get the video on this, this will really be helpful. But what we heard from these clubs that we interviewed, they had an intentional focus on diversity, and they wanted to make sure their club reflects the community. So there were a number of things that they did with respect to this, which included looking at gender diversity, age diversity, and occupation diversity. And if I had more time, I could give you some more, but the main thing that they really wanted to make sure we understood is they really worked to create a welcoming environment to anyone who wanted to join their club. Now, in closing, I want to share one more video. This is a video from Marianne in the Vancouver Mountaintop Club in British Columbia. The last question we would always ask on the interview was, tell us what Rotary Club leadership means to you. So here's Marianne.
For me, it is servant leadership. It is more of me helping other leaders to take a step to serve in the community through Rotary. And for me, Rotary leadership is really the four-way test. You cannot go wrong if you just follow what is our four-way test. And secondly, Rotary leadership is really serving myself, my community, and my family. I didn't know that Rotary would have a big impact on me as a leader. Rotary leadership has grown me into a person that I won't stop being a Rotarian, because it gives me the opportunity to help other people to serve, help other people to lead, to show more about the good character based on the four-way test. Integrity, fun, smiling always is still a Rotary leadership. And yeah, it's really more on the servant leadership.
Okay, so thank you for that. What I will tell you is this presentation that we're putting together is still a work in progress, but we wanted to share it with you at our January membership seminar. As I mentioned, we are going to have more videos so that these club presidents can tell their stories. So with that, what I would like to do now, I'm going to ask Karen, were there any questions in the chat? And I can take one or two questions, and then I think we got to move on to our next.
I don't see any, Herb.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody wants to put their hand up now.
If there are any questions, put your hand up. I'm happy to answer one or two questions before we move on. Okay, Mary Ellen?
Hi, Herb. These slides are fabulous. Is there any way that we could get copies of those? Because I know I'm doing a membership training for our district in February, and I think some of these would be great to share in that meeting.
I will be happy to share. I will be happy to share the slides, or at least where we are with the slides, with anyone who would like them. What I can do is I can send them to all the district membership chairs. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mel. Marty?
Herb, you made mention of the fact that our district in New York bucked the trend in December of dropping membership. And I just wanted to share something that may or may not resonate with the other districts. We had in particular 2 large clubs that come December and the end of June would drop members like a hot potato if they hadn't paid their dues. We had some long and serious conversations with these 2 clubs, and in one case replaced a longstanding treasurer because he was resistant to change. And the change we were asking them to do was to level out the billing of their members, to start billing in October and April for December and June. And as a result, neither of those 2 clubs dropped any members this year. We're talking 40 or 50 members. That was typically what would happen in a massacre on those dates. Didn't happen.
Okay. Thanks. And that's important. So that's important information for June, because while we do lose some members in December, we lose a lot more in June. So that, thank you for sharing that. Okay, with that, what I'd like to do next is one of the things I will tell you is we are going to be using those slides for president-elect training in at least 3 of the 4 pets, the multi-district pets across our zone. And, you know, it will form the basis of what we're doing in president-elect training. And I saw Tari asked if we can send the slides to DGs also. I'm happy to do that. I think if people see this information more than once, that can't hurt. So no problem. Thank you guys for listening. I've gone over, but we're probably going to go over 5 or 10 minutes, but I apologize for that. So with that, I want to introduce Karen Gaffney. Karen is going to be talking to you about the assistant governor survey.
Yes,
Yeah.
so thanks, Herb. Yes, I am going to share the results from another survey. We have a committee at the zone level called the Enhanced Learning Team, and we conducted a survey of assistant governors across zones 28 and 32. And tonight, I'm going to summarize some of the results of the survey and also present a few of their comments. And at the end, we have some recommendations that we want to make and based on these results. And we're hoping that we can get your feedback about our recommendations. So definitely feel free to put some of your thoughts into the chat. And because before we go on and take next steps, we want to have consensus on what we're presenting here. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen now. And there we go. Okay. So as I said, we conducted the survey across Rotary zones 28 and 32. And we sent 7 pretty simple questions to 288 assistant governors across the 2 zones. And the good news is that we got 188 responses. So that's a 63% response rate, which is pretty strong. So we were happy about that, and we saw that as an indication that this was something that was important to assistant governors And we wanted to get a baseline with these questions and understand where are assistant governors today in terms of supporting their clubs with membership. So moving on to the next slide. The first question we asked them is, how long have you been in Rotary? So we wanted to understand, I'm sorry, how long have you been an assistant governor? 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? And it turns out that it was pretty evenly divided. The respondents were a little bit leaning toward 3-year assistant governors, but pretty much the same across the 3 years. The next question that we asked them is, did you receive an orientation or any training before starting your role? And we think that the results from this question are maybe the most important results we got out of the entire survey. 40% of the assistant governors who responded said that they did not receive an orientation or training. And I guess if you think about that in the context of owning your own business, it would be like finding out that nearly half of your employees didn't get any specific training for their role, which, you know, might lead to some confusion and some chaos in your company, and certainly varying results by employee. So the assistant governors in their 3rd year, many of them mentioned that over the course of the few years, they kind of figured it out on their own over time, but that's not really an efficient model. And we think that there's an opportunity here to offer more guidance so that assistant governors aren't left to interpret on their own what their district's priorities are. Assistant governors also mentioned that the expectations changed sometimes from year to year as the district governor changed. So again, we see this as a real opportunity for improvement, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the recommendations. The next question that we asked, were you given a job description? And there was a slightly better response rate here in terms of assistant governors saying that they did receive a job description. But when we took a deeper dive into some of the comments, and you'll see sample comments on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see that even though a lot of assistant governors said yes, it almost, after you read the comments, you almost felt like they meant to say no, because a lot of the comments led us to believe that, well, I sort of understood what I was supposed to do, or I went online, or, you know, I had a phone call with someone. But again, it was a little bit haphazard and definitely not always consistent. Moving on, the next question is, do you feel you have the tools and resources you need to be effective? Kind of similar results here. A lot of the assistant governors answered yes, they do. But then when you take a deeper dive into their comments, the comments weren't necessarily backing up that the answer should be yes. So again, some of the comments here on the right-hand side. And again, it was, I would say, wishy-washy in many cases as far as whether or not they felt they had the tools and resources. The next question is, do you feel prepared to support clubs with membership development? And this is actually probably the most provocative question that we asked, if you will, and the comments were very much a mixed bag, with notably many assistant governors expressing some ambivalence about whether it's their responsibility as an assistant governor to support membership growth in their clubs. If you look at some of the comments, again, some of the assistant governors said, well, that's really not my job. That's the job of the membership committee. They mentioned not having a coordinated effort between the district leadership teams and the membership teams. So again, I think there's an opportunity here, especially, we feel if membership is our top priority, that maybe having more coordination would be a good opportunity. So we have the recommendations, as I mentioned, and we have some recommendations that we think are important for districts, and then we have some recommendations that we think are important to the zone. And again, if you want to put some comments, your thoughts about these recommendations in the chat, that would be great. So our recommendations for districts is that we would encourage districts to review your assistant governor orientation and training policies. If you don't currently have an AG coordinator position, many of the assistant governors talked about if they had an assistant governor coordinator, that was a useful tool. So we encourage you to consider having that position. Ensure effective linkages between your assistant governors and membership development so that assistant governors do feel as though they have a role in supporting membership growth in their clubs. And then ensuring greater continuity from one Rotary year to the next, which again is all about making sure that multiple years are working together to ensure some continuity. And then our recommendations at the zone level, we thought about an opportunity to create an assistant governor facilitator at the zone level. So each zone would have someone who would work as a facilitator with assistant governors, and they would create and support regional assistant governor networks, which would give assistant governors an opportunity to share ideas across districts and across the zone. We could offer regular, either monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly information sharing and other learning opportunities for assistant governors. And then develop other resources as identified by districts to offer greater support for assistant governors to become kind of our foot soldiers in this membership initiatives that we're all working so hard to accomplish in our district. So that is our initial survey results. We are going to follow up with the assistant governors and try to take even a deeper dive as we go forward, but we wanted to share where we are with you now so that we can get your feedback. So with that, I'm just going to open it up and see if anyone has any thoughts they'd like to share.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to remove the spotlight.
Yep.
And so if anyone has any comments, please raise your hand. This is a work in progress. One of the things we are thinking about doing is possibly doing setting up a zone level position here to help facilitate communication across districts. And we'd love to hear different comments. So Mel, why don't you start?
So I'm in 7255 on Long Island, and we actually did create a position to have someone coordinate all the AGs during my year. We actually tagged initially the district governor nominee to do that position, because then they could meet all the AGs, they could start to get familiar with the clubs, and it would help them as they moved up through the track. We're looking, the governor coming in is looking maybe to change that a little bit and create a lieutenant governor positions. Might have 3 lieutenant governors that cover 3 of the different, dividing the district up into 3 pieces so that they can really work more closely with those assistant governors. So it's not one person having to talk to 20 people. You have 3 people splitting it up.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mel. Mary?
Hi, great presentations all. Like 7255, our district governor nominee is sort of the coordinator of the AG team in our district. That happened a couple of years ago, and it's, I think, a really great innovation. I'm really looking forward to, at Mid-Northeast PUTS, some of the regional teams are going to be training assistant governors, and I think that's a great idea. And I congratulate Jackie Yannicks on bringing that forward as the curriculum coordinator for Mid-Northeast Pets. And I know a lot of us were AGs and led the role. To me, that's one of the best roles in Rotary. And I think AGs are a critical part of bringing forward new clubs. I know 7230 has been mentioned a number of times throughout this conversation. And the one reason above each and every other reason is that we had an AG in our district who really believed in developing new clubs. She's been called a unicorn by a lot of people, and I think that's really true. And so it's really, I hope that we can get current and future AGs on board, because I think they have a real role to play in growing Rotary. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, Tari?
Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you all doing? Two very quick points. I think one is, are we really emphasizing the importance of turning up at trainings? And we often find that there is 2 to 3 to 4, just say we have 10 or 12 areas. There's consistently 3 or 4 AGs that do not turn up, whether it's personal, whether it's family, whether it's health, whatever. And what's the backup plan for that? And also, and the learning center. I'm a learning center geek, but I have done so many of the modules. I think, myself and Alexandra in 3.0 and a couple of others sort of lead the charge on that. But I have to say, even though it doesn't cover everything, it certainly gives you 20% of the basics that you need. And I think it should be mandatory. We say nothing's mandatory, and oftentimes we can't even get our chairs to do the training that we've asked them to do and that Rotary asks, but we really should enforce that there's a lot of good material in those trainings. Thank you.
Okay,
you.
Thanks, Tari. Ray?
So I think we can all admit, whether we're PDGs, DG, DGE, DGN, we are asked to do a lot with Rotary meetings, especially when you get to the DG role. You're pulled in a lot of different directions. I like the idea of the AG training because some have fallen down on the job, but to get them inspired, I don't think a monthly meeting will cut it, because again, we get pulled in so many directions. But I'm just talking at the top of my head after seeing this, like maybe the last quarter of the DG year, when the DGE is starting to come in, have those monthly meetings with the new AGs or continuing AGs for training. And then the next 6 months have a bi-monthly meeting with the AGs to keep on going. And then the last quarter of the year would be, or third quarter of the year, the GG year, would be to do a summary. And then you get into the same cycle of the new AGs coming in so they can hit the ground running, but you don't overwhelm with like 12 meetings a year. You maybe have 6 meetings or so per year.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Christine?
Good evening, everyone. Christine Burns, 7890. So this year at our Pets, Northeast Pets, as part of our AG training, we're actually doing a half hour with Julia Phelps on the Learning Center. Many AGs that came in over the pandemic, truthfully, at least in my humble opinion, did not receive the training they really needed. It's not going to be necessarily about how to use the Learning Center, although they'll get that, but also how to use it to support their clubs. And we are also doing a training at Northeast Pets on Club Central and the Brand Center for AGs, how to use that to support the clubs to bring them up into the new logos and themes. A lot of presidents really worry about their clubs every day. That's what they do, and they don't really have time for all of that. But if the AGs are the point with a few clubs to be able to really work with their presidents to make sure that it's not so scary and difficult, even if it's something as simple as our speaker canceled today, so you know what, let's all do a learning center, and you put it up on the screen. So we are focusing on that at Northeast Pets this year, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be received very well. and it's, you know, something to consider. We actually have a little contest that's going out with the presidents and AGs, that if before our pre-pets, they do one learning center and submit their certificate to me, we're going to have a raffle. So they'll get in there and, you know, at least maybe try it out. We just need to encourage them and I think make it less scary than, or less of another job that they have to do.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for your comments. Marty?
I remember back to one of the first Zoom calls with 400 people on it, and Mark Maloney at the beginning of the pandemic, when we thought about how we're going to survive, what are we going to do? And I think it's really important to know that two of the things that are important for us have been over these last few years, increasing our membership and increasing our diversity, embracing DEI. And so one of the things I think is important to remember at the AG level is that clubs should be hearing something new from their AGs than they haven't heard before. They should know something about the changes in Rotary, and they should be hearing it from someone new. So carefully choosing your leadership team and your AGs to reflect the face of the community and the changes that you want to see happen is important.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Okay, and there's a number of really good comments in the chat. We're going to collect all of those comments along with the verbal comments that we've had today. So I want to end by thanking all of you for joining us in this membership seminar. And there's one person on the call that I just saw, and I'm wondering if she might say a few words to close it. I noticed that our director nominee, Chris Etienne, is on the call. So Chris, would you mind saying a few words?
Thanks, Herb. Kind of blindsided me there.
Well, I was trying to text you.
Well, sorry about that. Appreciate you inviting me to attend, and I'm just excited to hear about all of the interesting things going on, and appreciate all the research that you're doing, trying to find out the clubs that are growing, how they're doing that, and just would like to encourage you all to continue engaging your members and making membership a priority. You know, as we've heard tonight, it's everyone's responsibility. So, you know, we need to remind everybody of that. If we're going to grow this organization, we all need to be working together to do it. And, you know, Drew, do you have anything you want to say?
I echo the sentiments you just laid out, in that it really is, it's everybody's responsibility. And as I lit off by saying, this is the choir. Now we obviously need to get out there and really make sure our members understand the top priority. And I think this, for nothing else, puts the analytics and highlights what a lot of us already know, but seeing it in black and white, I think opens the eyes to some. And it really comes down to, specifically, if we look at the AGs, it comes down to training, looks at our membership. It looks at our members from a club perspective. Consistency plays a lot into it. We always talk about, Jennifer talks about the comfort and care of our members, and I talk about welcome and wanted. But at the end of the day, it's that same feeling, and I think it resounds in the survey. So again, Herb, I know you and your team and Doug and his team have done a phenomenal job with this. I look forward to everything that's to come. And most specifically, I look forward to seeing this being really implemented at PETS. I think this could have a really nice impact for the coming Rotary year.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Our next session will be in April. It'll be the second Tuesday in April. I will be sharing information on the topics there, but likely topics will be how to finish strong, and Marty gave us some good thoughts on that already. So we finish our year strong. We're going to be talking more about this new club initiative in April for sure, and probably the Rotaract initiative as well. But more to come on that. You'll get a save the date from me probably sometime in March, and then we'll let you know what the agenda items will be. But second Tuesday in April. Thanks a lot and good night.